you know, I've always talked in the past about educating the farmers, which is necessary, but let's think about the consumer for a moment. The consumer has been told that when you walk into that grocery store, everything in there is safe for you to eat.
I came from a family that was vegetarian. We started vegetarian restaurants. We started trying to grow our own food, our vegetables for our vegan restaurants. And when we started to do that, we realized, wow, these vegetables aren't vegan. We had to use bone meal, blood meal, or fish emulsion to get those soils to be healthy. If we try to synthetically make these plants grow and say, oh, plant-based is saving the world, that's totally inauthentic, and it's just become marketing jargon. It's not true, and it's not how nature works.
I'm Caitlin Sinclair. Thank you all for being here with me today. I have two gentlemen who've traveled mighty far to join us on set. Gentlemen, can you each introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure, Caitlin, my name is Rick Clark. I'm a fifth-generation farmer from West Central Indiana.
Thanks for being with us, Rick.
It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Ryland Engelhart, traveling from Bandera, Texas, where I live on a 200-acre regenerative farm and ranch there with my family. And
not too shabby.
No, it's a great life, and I'm excited to be here in DC with this MAHA movement and the MAHA Institute and this launch, and really here to facilitate the understanding that we can't have a healthy America until we have farms and soil and ranches that are actually healthy as well.
Yeah, so Ryland, Rick, the farmers of this country have really been working quietly on the sidelines, not by choice. They've been doing the Lord's work, but they've kind of been forgotten about until this movement started to become quite loud. And now here we are, the launch of the MAHA Institute. And what would you say brings both of you to the MAHA Institute as far as a story or passion? What is your why for being involved?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I am extremely excited about the fact that there are so many sectors now at the same table and talking about how are we going to get this MAHA movement to really move through the farming community in a grassroots type movement.
Right.
So no parties here need to be involved. It's all of us trying to figure out how to make America healthy again. It's just that simple.
Yeah. Yeah, some people don't see it as quite simple, though. There have been a lot of critics that are either really confused on what the movement is or just don't approve of really the unity that we've created in the MAHA movement, and they're quite skeptical still of what this movement is. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, I would say I lived in California for 25 years.
You're familiar.
My family was vegan restaurateurs in Los Angeles, served millions of plant-based organic meals, and thought that we were sort of at the tip of the spear of health and wellness. Yeah. And then we started farming and realized, wow, animals are essential to have healthy soil and healthy farms. And sort of my vegan mythology and that bubble that I was operating inside, it got popped.
Yeah.
And then because I was running an organization called Kiss the Ground at the time, which was mostly liberal, left-leaning organization, and I was very inspired by Bobby Kennedy. I became a surrogate on his campaign. I had the opportunity to be at some events with him and really just saw an opportunity that, wow, this is a man with profound character, knowledge, and wisdom, and understands the importance of holistic thinking and understands that we can't have a healthy America if we don't have healthy farms and healthy soil and healthy food. And I've seen all the mud be thrown, and ultimately I can see the truth through that, which, what is happening is extraordinary, and there is this great awakening of people coming together for the love of our children more than our love of our party.
Truly.
And so, I'm just grateful to be here from Texas. I'm grateful to be, an ally to the MAHA movement. And really, my role and my position is, for the last decade and a half, I've been building relations and telling stories of the best regenerative farmers and producers in this country and around the world, having people understand the good news about regeneration, that human beings can actually heal the earth while producing nutrient-dense, healthy food. that is creating healthy societies.
Yeah, and I think, there's been so much talk around regeneration, and in general, I don't know if your average person really understands how critical that is to have a healthy America. Like you just spoke about, healthy soil and healthy farming. So when you take the term regenerative, what does that really mean when it comes to farming for our audience that's not really familiar?
Yeah, well, I'm going to lean in to Rick to share, but he's on 6,000 acres in Indiana, really doing large-scale, no-till, regenerative organic, and it's there's something we have to learn from him and people like him. So
yeah, to me, regeneration is about eliminating inputs entirely, and covering the ground with a green, growing cover crop. Have a living root in the ground as many days as possible. And then those roots are going deep in the profile, and they are pulling the nutrients that are deep in that profile back to the surface to be regenerated, to be used by the next cash crop. That's what I think of regeneration. It's something that is a concept that's hard for the average American farmer to understand. So there is a lot of education that needs to take place.
And how do you gentlemen suggest that we continue that conversation? Obviously, the conversations have been started, but what are the most efficient ways to get this messaging out to all Americans?
I mean, I'll start by saying, I had the opportunity to launch this organization and these two films called Kiss the Ground and Common Ground. One is the Kiss the Ground film has been seen by 10 million people, and now the sequel is on Amazon Prime, and really they're the story of how farmers are succeeding in being more profitable while working in nature's image and likeness to heal the soil while creating a healthy, productive business. And so, these films are available on Netflix, on Amazon Prime, but my objective is how do we get these films in our education system? And that's one of my goals, is how do we have in this re-education of America, this MAHA America, how do we use these beautiful assets that have been created to influence those that are in this educating period of their life to really understand the consciousness of, wow, what gives me my health is my food, and what gives my food health is the soil and the stewardship that's making that food.
Right.
And making that connection. Yeah, as simple as it is, it's mostly broken. We don't think about that. We think of food coming from grocery stores. And so to make that larger connection that eating is an agricultural act is a consciousness awakening that I want to see in America, and I think is happening, and that's actually why I'm so excited. But ultimately, my two objectives is to use this media content and have the message be seen and heard through those films, and also through a new organization that me and Rick started called American Regeneration, which is essentially finding the best and the brightest regenerative practitioners in this country and bringing their information, their policy suggestions, their white papers, their discoveries to the people who are now leading this MAHA commission, obviously HHS, and it seems like Brooke Rollins and USDA is interested in being a collaborator on this. So that's why we're here in DC.
How important is it for our viewers to understand a lot of these large grocery stores are all owned now by major corporations, and how important is it when you're shopping for meat and produce to shop locally, to actually purchase from your local farmers versus buying in those large stores?
It's very important. Go to those on Saturdays.
Farmers market.
The farmers market. I spaced that out. Sorry. Yes, go to those. Get that. You can stand there and talk to the producer. Now, how did you raise this animal?
Find out exactly how your
Did you give it antibiotics?
Right.
What happened here? That's very important. But I think the next phase here has to be a massive push of education. Yeah. Now let's think about I've always talked in the past about educating the farmers, which is necessary. But let's think about the consumer for a moment. The consumer has been told that when you walk into that grocery store, everything in there is safe for you to eat, right? So why would they think anything different? So we need to educate the consumer about how dangerous some of the food items in that store are, and then the consumer will drive the change to the farmer, because they will have to then change to create the food that the consumer is wanting. So I think we really have to figure out how to push education to the consumer. And what Ryland was talking about was getting these movie clips. There's several documentaries. There's more than just the two that Ryland mentioned. But
place to start.
But that's where we start.
Yeah.
And get that in front of those FFA kids, those ag students at the local high schools, and then that's where it all begins.
Now, I think there's another misconception out there, and farmers are struggling. And I didn't grow up with a farming family. I grew up in a major city. But for all of us that are now curious about where our meat is coming from, what we're putting into our bodies, I think there's a misconception out there when it is made in America, right? When something is supposedly local and raised here. But from my own research, if you just do one part of the process of packaging the meat and transporting the meat in the States, then you can put a label on that says it's local or it's produced locally. So how does that really work?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure on that. I know that there is a lot of talk about that. I know that there's a lot of confusion around labeling, and there is a lot of, specifically with meat, that it's very hard to understand if this meat is coming from mostly not a single source, and especially when it comes to ground beef, and where is it coming from? So I know that I don't have the answers on that. I think one thing that is sort of good news and is growing in the same way that farmers markets have been growing is there's a huge opportunity for people to buy directly from producers. When it comes to meat boxes where people are selling directly from their farm to the consumers, and so I think that's one thing that is exciting. Again, anyone that we trust is someone that we spend time with, we have a relationship, we understand how they operate in life, and food is the most intimate way that we are nourishing ourselves on a day-to-day basis. So why wouldn't we take the time to understand who is producing and curating and creating those most essential nutrients that we're putting in our body?
Yeah. Now, I have to ask, because I think our viewers will be curious. You mentioned you were a vegan, so was I, for 4 years, and I want to know what made you pop that bubble, as you said. What was kind of the effect that made you decide this is not the route for me, or maybe I've been brainwashed?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great example of a strong urban ideology that I think I was completely inside of a bubble.
Yeah.
And really, I came from a family that was, was vegetarian. We started vegetarian restaurants. We've served, millions of vegetarian vegan meals. And I was convinced that it was the healthiest, best diet on the planet.
And everyone else in LA.
and then we started trying to grow our own food, our vegetables for our vegan restaurants. And when we started to do that, we realized, wow, these vegetables aren't vegan. To create fertility for these vegetables to grow, we needed constituents from animals, whether it was manure from a CAFO, a concentrated animal feedlot operation, which that's not cool to feed our vegan vegetables for our vegan restaurant with a concentrated animal feedlot operation, or we had to use bone meal, blood meal, or fish emulsion to get those soils to be healthy. So we realized, oh my God, these vegetables are not vegan. And so we started, having animals on our farm, and that led to us actually, me and my father, putting down and slaughtering 2 animals on our farm. And we actually were going to film, we were actually going to film that for the first Kiss the Ground film, but it was too intense. It was too much, too much for the public to see all at once, and it didn't make sense for a vegan business to show.
Baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps. So really, it was just us realizing the truth that our dogma and our ideological views were actually not authentic.
Yeah.
And so we had to essentially, change our view and say, all right, this is the truth of what I know now. And, and that came hand in hand with this understanding that animals and plants and soil microorganisms are part of this beautiful creation of the Creator. And if we try to compartmentalize and pull it apart and just synthetically make these plants grow and say, oh, plant-based is saving the world, that's totally inauthentic and it's just become marketing jargon. It's not true, and it's not how nature works.
Right.
And so we just had to continuously, be humble about our learnings. And that led me from California and vegan restaurants to now Texas, working and running a restaurant, or on-farm restaurant called Sovereignty Ranch.
Yeah.
So.
Recovering vegan, I eat a steak a day, and it's sometimes still shocking to my friends and family. Who is she? But it's very important to have that conversation and start these conversations. And like you said, humbly admit and humbly learn. We're always learning and growing. And I think it's important to not shame people for certain diets or beliefs around these subjects, because there's a lot that's unknown.
That's right.
And we're all still learning. So.
And it's the same thing with the farmers. We cannot shame them for the way they've been farming.
Right.
We need to teach them how to incorporate.
And welcome everyone into this movement.
Meeting farmers, meeting everyone where they're at, and showing them that there is a better way that actually meets their needs, not just some ideological belief system of we can't have chemicals, people are dying from these chemicals. Yes, the chemicals, we're seeing a lot of human health impacts from the slurry of toxins that are in the fishbowl of our life. But we need to meet people where they're at, and we need to encourage them and show them another way. And I believe that actually everyone wants to do something better, and they're actually going to feel happier and more inspired, and actually going to pull that information towards them as that information becomes revealed and realized on their own farm, their own operation, and they see it working.
Embrace, I think the golden age of health is here, and we have a lot of work to do, but I want to thank you both for being here with me and for all the work that you're doing. And please continue to be involved and have these conversations, because bringing even one new person on board makes such a difference.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.